Have you teach me how to do the music intro?
There we go. We're going to get a new one soon enough. But we are live. What's going on, everybody? Here we are, Monday, April 15th. I'm going to be a little slow on the draw today, not feeling the best, so bear with me here. And I'm joined by someone different on a Monday morning. Emac, what's going on?
It's good times here at Casa de Emac. I had one heck of a weekend run here, John.
I saw that. That was a very nice screenshot I saw today. Or was that Saturday night?
Yes. So that was Saturday night into the Sunday morning. So for those that weren't following along, I put my I mass multi-entry'd the mini-max there for NBA with 5. That qualifies as multi-entry. And turned my $2.50 into $800. One of my 5 lineups cashed, and it just so happened to top out. I was trying to explain to my wife how improbable this was. I beat 23,780 people. With my lineup.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. So I usually get 1 or 2 of these a year, and I was just laughing because I was my wife was traveling. Shout out to her. She just completed half marathon 99 and she was in Kansas. And so I was messaging her and she's like, "What the hell were you doing up so late last night?" I said, "Well, I was getting ready to go to bed, and all of a sudden my a couple $100 turned into $1,200. I said, "Oh shoot, I got to see why this is happening."
Got to sweat that out.
I ended up staying up, and I knew I had to get up and do the show with Adam Sunday and all that. But anyway, it was a good time. So shout out to you for running the projections and stuff through this mess. But I stuck with Boban. That ended up being helpful. I had and he was 18% in this contest. Andre Iguodala was just 5%. He had 34 DK points. And then I had not many people went with Jokic, but I had a Jokic, Butler, DeMar DeRozan. Those guys were all 15% or so. So it worked out to be the lucky combination, but I did end up I think I won it by 6 or 8 points. So it was just one of those, holy cow.
I did not want that Embiid news. It was like the first that I'd gotten out of the house. My wife and I went to grab lunch. I took my laptop and everything with me. I had my book bag just sitting next to me, and it was just waiting. And all of a sudden I just had to pop it out, quickly make the update and re-upload them. I was just like, I don't want to do any part of this. I feel terrible.
Yeah, so when I didn't know what to think. For a while I thought, okay, Embiid's going to play, he's going to play. Oh crap, Embiid might not be playing. And then when he was
playing,
then he was out or in, and everybody's like, well, what do we do with Boban? And people were saying he's not going to play at all, or he might be the first guy in, and Jonah Bolden news and all this, but he was the first guy in.
Yeah, so. I did not expect that.
No, that was a little scary. And then yesterday, the one that I guess Blake Griffin must be a little more injured than we thought.
Yeah, he's done for the year.
Is he? I didn't see that anyway.
They announced it as done for the series, but let's be honest here. They're not getting out of Milwaukee.
What did they lead the game yesterday? Like 24 seconds or something?
Yeah. Yeah, Andre Drummond didn't help me out yesterday either.
No. And thanks for the frustration foul there, buddy. Come on.
But we are here to talk about baseball today. And shout out to Yahoo Sports for sponsoring this show. Could not be happier to have them. Emac, if you get a chance, can you drop a Yahoo link into chat for me with all of the bells and whistles?
We can get that done here.
Yahoo is the presenting sponsor of the strategy show now, and we could not be happier. We'll be touching on Yahoo and throughout the show. We will be doing another Yahoo specific show on Friday, same as last week and the week before. We've got a 9-game slate today. If you want to sign up and check out all of the content we're offering, MLB Strategy is the promo code. One big word. You can get 50% off your first month with us. Any package you choose. It can include Fantasy Cruncher. Speaking of Fantasy Cruncher, I've got something really exciting to show everybody and start to walk through, but I'm in no position to do it today. I thought that I'd be able to do it all weekend, and it's just been going further and further away from me. There's just no way that I can do it. But we've got big things planned that are coming up in the near future. So stay tuned for that. Sorry, Dave, by the way. Trust me, I'm not happy about it either. But yeah, MLB strategy.
He's been messaging me as well. I'm like, I don't have access to it yet. You got to hook me up here, buddy.
Yeah.
One of these hands doesn't know what the other's doing. So.
Yeah, it's just gotta. I'm getting there as fast as I can. I promise. But we've got baseball to talk about. 9-gamer. It's a nice little Monday slate. I'm happy. That's manageable. 2 games for the NBA. I'm also happy. That's incredibly manageable. Probably won't have to pay too much attention to NBA projections in the middle of the day, which is very nice. We've got. It was a crazy weekend of sports. Tiger Woods back and as good as ever. Not true, but back and winning, which is exciting. NBA playoffs are here. And yeah, I think we should just dive into it.
Let's do it. Not to forget here that we do have a 11:05 start in Boston. Boston taking on the Baltimore Orioles. This is Patriots Day in Boston. It is remember to mail in your tax return days today as well. Yeah. It's good times. Good times all around here. My wife and I were working on that before she went on her trip. And then again, it's like, why do we put this off every year until the last day?
Yeah, I know that feeling.
And I'm a CPA, damn it. Why am I waiting on this? Because that was my career 2 careers ago.
I used to wait till the end. I've done them my entire life. Now I wish I didn't. Not that it makes much of a difference. I don't ever like plan to get a refund or plan to pay in. It's just, it is what it is. It's all relatively neutral to me. This one was not fun. This was not a good year for taxes.
Well, they changed a lot of things changed with the last tax. I don't know. Don't even know what the legislation, I guess, is the proper word. But it's so all the things that I used to do, just easily say, oh, this, and this, and it usually takes me about, I don't know, 8 hours or so. But I had all sorts of new questions were coming up, all sorts of things where I'm like, why am I not getting a discount for this? Why am I getting a discount or a reduction for this? This is weird stuff. So it's a little bit frustrating, but hey, I'm paying less in taxes. Sorry, people that make less money than me that are paying more. Maybe vote for a different person next time. But anyway.
Shout out to my wife for making us pay more taxes this year. That is a compliment, I promise.
Her Etsy site is doing well?
No, it's just her life in general is doing really well, save for having to put up with me on a day-to-day basis. Let's talk Phillies and Mets. What do you say?
Absolutely. Let's get her going here.
Alrighty. Phillies 3.8 run implied total. Mets 3.7. It's a 52% chance to win for the Phils. Aaron Nola on the bump for Philadelphia. Noah Syndergaard going for the Mets. A pretty nice little pitching matchup. I'm not going to lie. I give it's weird. It bounces around a little bit. So I have a slight lean towards Syndergaard over Nola. I don't really have a huge preference, though, between the two, and that's on either site. I got a little bit more of Nola on my first crunch on FanDuel, $600 cheaper. I don't really see much separating them. They're separated in my projections by 0.3 of a point. Most of what I'll get in exposure is sort of just based on randomness. Similarly on DK, they grade out essentially equal. Do you have a preference between the two today?
No, which is kind of funny because normally I would, and so you look at it and you're like, okay, 2 of the more expensive pitchers. Okay, it's reasonable matchups on both sides, even though both teams are dramatically improved offensively from where they were last year. The Nola discount kind of has me moving away. If this one was in Citi Field, I think I would be just fine with giving him the slight nod, but instead I then said, all right, I'm going to look over here to Syndergaard. And then once I got down into that particular analysis, I decided I don't know how much of either one of these guys I'm going to play, which is funny for the first game you're starting out with. just because, and we'll get into the slate, but it's kind of an intriguing one here, up and down the slate, because these guys are by far, outside of Trevor Bauer, who's going to be in the 10 o'clock game. These guys are by far the best two pitchers here. But once I started screwing around with stuff, their price tags, especially on DK, made it a little more prohibitive, and I don't know what to do with them. I suspect as the day goes on, it'll my gap will be narrowed between Bauer and these two, and I'll probably have 15, 20, 25% of whomever I feel the best is, and then probably 15% of the other two. But I'm not going heavy on these two pitchers, which was surprising to me. But after watching so many aces get creamed yet again this weekend, I'm not feeling as excited about paying for pitching because, recency bias, I guess, just doesn't. It just feels that I'd rather have more hitters, or my stacks, which of course, most of us do a lot of pass multi-entry in the stacks. I want the 2, 3, 4, 5 hitters. And if you're paying for these pitchers, you'll still get the stacks, but you need to look closely at them because they're going to be the 6, 7, 8 hitters, which is not what you want normally.
Yeah. So the public is making a distinction that they prefer Aaron Nola. Nola is getting 23% expected ownership on Yahoo, 23 on FanDuel, 27 on DK. Syndergaard is 15, 10, and 18 respectively. So there's a slight lean going to Nola. But I'm under the field. The 20, like, I understand 23 for Nola on FanDuel, 27 for Syndergaard. None of that stuff is terribly shocking to me. I'm just not going to have that much. I have no complaints. They're decent matchups on both sides, sub 4 implied total on both sides. It's just really hard. It feels very coin flippy. Like, I have Syndergaard projected for 6.3 Ks. I have Aaron Nola projected for 6.4 Ks. Like, I don't have anything that I could separate these guys for right now.
No, and that makes a lot of sense. And even if you're like, all right, eighth tiebreaker, let's start looking at some game logs here. I'm not doing cartwheels with either guy's game log. No. So it's and I say that, I mean, if anybody, it would be Syndergaard, but he's had a rough stretch in dealing with various maladies throughout the season. Nola has had a less than stellar game log, but he is and also dealt with his own injuries last season and the season before. But it was interesting to me to see as many, 3, what I would say, ace type pitchers, and in that category I kind of include about 25 pitchers, so they're not all Cy Young candidates, but I say aces, and we got 3 of them going today, and I was not getting a ton of them when I was doing my crunches last night. So
yeah, I was a little surprised. Ultimately, this will shake out as, if either person is getting a dramatic change in ownership, I'll probably be on the opposite side. Like, for example, on FanDuel, I didn't have we have ownership now, but I did not have it on my first crunch. So we have Nola projected for 23. We have Syndergaard projected for 10. I'm way more likely to get more Syndergaard as I get closer to lock if those numbers change, just because there's no reason for me to be over or with the field on a coin flip. I'd rather just be on the other guy. I think that makes me end up better off more often than not. So I don't have any hot takes. These guys are like completely equal to me today. I'm just going to follow the ownership. Do you care about any bats here? Neither team is getting any sort of love from a stack perspective. Robinson Cano is the only guy to be in double digits of ownership on all 3 sites. A lot of that has to do with the fact that he's just a really cheap second base option on all 3 sites. So he's getting one-offed, but this game is not appealing offensively.
No, I would agree with that. I mean, the only guys that are sort of bubbling are Bryce Harper and Rhys Hoskins, which we're going to say their names every time in every game that they're both healthy.
Sure.
This season. Cano's a little bit interesting. He got the day off yesterday. I think a lot of people haven't quite caught on just yet that he is now with the Mets. I mean, they have a nice upgrade with him. They've got the youngster Alonso there. They've got Wilson Ramos, who's kicked around to like 5 teams, it feels like, in the last couple of years. But I really am not doing cartwheels for any part of this game, which was just surprised me a little bit. I thought something would stand out, but we have enough games on the slate. That's not the case. And just for perspective, Josh, so Adam and I did the baseball show yesterday, and we did a quick run through the 5-game afternoon slate because both of us thought it was going to be a good one, and I
guess it turned out to be a pretty good one for Adam.
Well, yes, it absolutely did. He, for those that don't know, he took down, I don't know, 10K or whatever it was over there on DraftKings. But the funny thing is I kind of surprised him and said, yeah, we're going to talk real quick about this afternoon slate because I'm going to I've got an idea of how I want to approach it. And it was go all in on the San Francisco Giants pitching and throw in Garrett Cole. Well, Herman Marquez ended up with a complete game. He flirted with a no-hitter. Cole had a solid game, and Adam said, well, I'm going to add to that. I totally agree with you. Those are just the 3 pitchers I want. But he said, I'm going to let the hitters and stacks differentiate what I'm doing. And I said, yeah, that's exactly where I'm going. The lineup that he had that took down his $10,000, I had that same lineup in a jukebox. I got my quarter into $50, baby. Yeah, last of the big spenders. It's your whole value.
Yeah, that is. Those are always like the really frustrating spots.
I never worry about it anymore because
it happens so much. I'm not playing
the big bucks tournaments. It's too top heavy. I mean, Alex last week took down $100,000 in a contest where he got first. He also got seventh. Seventh was $1,500.
Yeah.
It's just not good times. Today, there's a contest on DraftKings with $200,000 as the top prize, $100,000 as the next prize, and the bleeping prize pool is like $800,000.
Craziness.
Yeah. Be smart, gamers. Be smart.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, I don't really have many people to point out here. Like, obviously, Bryce Harper is fine as a one-off if he's not getting any ownership. Peter Alonso grades out oddly solid on FanDuel as a first base option, even at 4,600. But I really can't advocate for anything here. It's a really tough sell for me. And I really did not get anything outside of Cano on my first crunch.
Yeah. Sorry, and if I said Yahoo, I really meant DraftKings when I was there. I was looking at my Yahoo page. But it's 1 million, Josh. 1 million in the prize pool. 350,000 go to the top 3 spots.
Wait, on DraftKings or on Yahoo?
DraftKings. I wanted to make sure.
Oh my God, I'm going to force myself to play that Yahoo whatever that Yahoo tournament is.
No, they for football they went a little wild there. Thanks for my voice cracking.
It was fun. I took a couple stabs at that.
Yeah. Their big contest there is let's see, today it's 15K for $15. By the way, I put in that we talked about the Friday show, and then we'll get out of this game. But we talked about the Friday show where you and I did the Yahoo only one, and we put together 3 lineups. I chose one of those to make my lineup for the night because I was busy doing other stuff.
Sure.
I was the cut line. I just missed it.
Oh, I was hoping you just made it.
No, 0.8 points out of it. Now, to be fair, Rougned Odor, who's now on the injured list, he was a late scratch. I managed to swap him out, but we had 3 minutes to do that, which is a little dicey. But I managed to get in there, and all night I just watched. I didn't have anybody in the late game, so I just every time there was a walk or a single, there wasn't hardly any scoring. I just would drop 2 spots, 1 spot, 2 spots, 1 spot. And that game in San Francisco went 18 innings. I was like, oh.
I don't know anything that's happened in baseball in the past 3 days. I did not play Friday, Saturday, or Sunday.
It's all right. I got you covered. I played literally every sport except tennis this weekend.
The only sport I actually had contests in was golf, and that went really well. So shout out to Tiger Woods. Love you, brother.
I did not play Tiger Woods.
I did in the lineup that I didn't mean to play him as much in. That was funny. Opened it up and realized that I ran a train in one contest. Didn't try to do that at all. But it ended up being a really good lineup. I had 20 lineups made in golf, and one lineup, for some reason, I don't know how I did it, ended up being in a lot of things. including trains in a particular tournament, and that turned out to be the best lineup I had of all 20. So sometimes you just step in it. It's like earlier this year, I couldn't get my CSV in time, so I ran a placeholder in the quarter on FanDuel, and it 5x'd, and I made that lineup at like 8:30 a.m. Sometimes you just step in it, you know?
Yeah,
I'll take it.
Gets to be lucky when that happens. For all the time something stupid happens, it does go in your favor. It feels like it never does, but sometimes it will.
Speaking of things you step in that are similar, the Marlins taking on the Cubs. 3.9 run implied total for the Marlins, 4.2 for the Cubs. It's a 54% chance to win for Chicago. Trevor Richards on the hill for Miami. Yu Darvish on the hill for Chicago. I did not get to much of Richards or Darvish, single digits ownership on FanDuel. I think that Darvish grades out slightly ahead of Trevor Richards on Yahoo at the exact same $37 price point. DK, though, is going a much different direction. Yu Darvish currently projected for, drumroll, but I also did it, but I figured it would be really loud. Darvish projected for 29% ownership, second most chalky pitcher on the DK slate. How do you feel about Yu Darvish today?
Terrified.
Yeah,
absolutely terrified. Now the matchup we love. He's in Miami, pitching Park, but in his last three matchups, or all three matchups, I guess, thus far this season, he has had some issues with the walks. Yeah. Now they're trending in the right direction. 7 in that first game, then 6, none in the last game. But last game he gave up 2 home runs, and in the first 2, he only gave up 1. The other thing that is also slightly concerning is he hasn't gone over 70, or I guess 77 pitches, but he's gone 71, 70, 7, and 75. I'd like to see more, but the price is he's fairly priced for him being Yu Darvish, but him being Yu Darvish post I was going to say postseason meltdown and injuries and all the other stuff. He doesn't seem like the same pitcher. Now, could he get there? Sure. We just saw Tiger Woods win the Masters. So, and remember how broken and injured he was. So it just takes time to get away from the various maladies and demons that you have. But I just don't love Darvish. Now, let's take his name away. If you don't look at him as being Yu Darvish, and you've got a guy with a solid track record, if we pull 2-year stats, and he's in Miami going against this iteration of the Marlins, which are, is the bat boy leading off today? I don't know, but it feels like it. All of a sudden, that's how I'm going to get Darvish. If I'm hand building lineups, I don't think I can click on him, but I'm still coming in at about 20% of my crunches. So that to me just says it's a function of his potential upside and the possibility and the matchup, which it's baseball. Literally anything can happen, but all of a sudden I'm getting him. Now, when I say, oh my God, I've got 25% Yu Darvish, I'm not happy about it. But when I've got 25% of SP2 that has these kind of numbers, all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, yeah, let's see what happens.
Yeah, on FanDuel where he's 7,100, that's a really interesting price. He can show some ceiling on that number. On DK, I would have a real hard time getting to 29%. I think that he and Trevor Richards are relatively equal in terms of upside in this matchup, and Richards is less than half the ownership. You can talk me into a couple shares of Kikuchi as well. So I don't really love the ownership on DK. FanDuel at 9% is pretty irrelevant. You just take whatever you can get. You're either chalk or you're not on FanDuel since you're only playing one pitcher. Yahoo, though, Darvish, middle of the pack, $37 price tag, 25% expected ownership. I just lost EMAC. Is that me or is that everybody? Please just be me. I'm guessing EMAC closed the... Let's boot him out of here. Power outage for EMAC. Cool. Cool. Flying solo. So now I'm just going to keep going. EMAC's messaging me. Give me 1 second, everybody. Oh, back and router rebooting. Okay. So EMAC will be back in a couple of minutes. I'll finish off my Yu Darvish thoughts. On Yahoo, I don't mind it all that much. I just see a sea of guys that are very similar, so I don't need to get to Chalky Darvish. It just doesn't feel that great for me. It is a great park. It is a great matchup in terms of hitting talent. There's not a ton of strikeouts though in the Marlins lineup, so I don't need to follow the public here. And like I said, Trevor Richards I think is interesting as a slight pivot away from Yu Darvish, but he's not a guy that I would get to with any sort of volume. I only got 3% on FanDuel. In terms of stacking up this game, I would look to get a stack or two of the Marlins on the opposite side of Darvish if you're playing 150, just because I think there's some utility in that. But I did not get to much, only 2% on FanDuel. I got 4% of the Cubs, which people aren't really at. I have no problem going to the Cubs just because of their massive power upside. So I guess the thing that I would like the most here would probably be Cubs bats, but even that's not that crazy. Bryant, Rizzo, Schwarber looking pretty nice as a 3-man band on the Cubs. Or on Yahoo, rather. On FanDuel, I like the 1 through 5, so that'd be Zobrist, Bryant, Rizzo, Baez, Schwarber. On DK, Zobrist and Bryant getting a lot of love, dual eligibility on both guys. We've got Rizzo at 4,200 as a first baseman. I think he grades out really well. Probably the best of anyone on the Cubs on DK. And then Schwarber for 4K as an outfielder. I like the upside of the Cubs. I know it's a terrible park for power. It's a really scary spot. But for me, a little bit of Cubs stack seems fine because of their talent level. But ultimately, I think it's just easier to not be really around this game. I'd rather just fade Darvish. That doesn't necessarily mean I want to have Miami. I just don't have that much interest in anything specific here. Schwarber on Yahoo is probably my favorite play. $13 outfielder could really change the slate. It doesn't matter how bad the park is. Schwarber's not going to struggle to hit it out there. Yeah, chat's making a decent comment that if the Cubs are running out a bunch of lefties against Richards, that might not be in the Cubs' best interest because of his changeup. It's a good point. Like I said, he and Richards and Darvish are pretty close to me. They're separated by a fantasy point on FanDuel, so I have no issue going to Trevor Richards. Move on to Brewers and Cardinals. 5.1 run implied total for the Brewers, 4.4 for the Cardinals. A 57% chance to win for Milwaukee. Freddy Peralta going for the Brewers. Dakota Hudson going for the Cardinals. Now we can immediately just disregard Dakota Hudson, but Freddy Peralta can't disregard here. Monster stuff. Always has trouble finding the play. We got EMAC back. What's up, sir?
So very, very windy here in Northern Virginia, and it was the weirdest blackout because it wasn't really or blackout. I call them blackouts, but power outage. It was a brownout, Josh. Everything
browned out a lot in my day.
And then apparently my monitor kept shutting off and the router kept restarting. But I never really lost power. But now I've got things beeping all over the house.
So I finished off Marlins Cubs.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
We're on Brewers Cardinals now, and I'm pointing out that Freddy Peralta looks pretty tasty. He is projected for 32% ownership on Yahoo, 12 on FanDuel, 26 on DK. How do you feel about Peralta? High risk, high reward.
For those watching at home, they just got to see my lights flash on and off, yet I still am connected to you, I hope.
Ship my EMAC DFS over here.
Oh, jeez. Apparently, I'm taking over from him. Peralta, I like him in this matchup going against the righty-heavy lineup. For whatever reason, the Cardinals still just have Matt Carpenter as their only really, truly functional guy swinging the stick from the left side of the plate. Shout out to him. Set a career high in home runs last season. I think it was like 34 or 36. He's had a nice little run thus far to start the season here. Got himself a little 2-year extension. It's I mean, the Cardinals have a phenomenal lineup, but they're all righties,
Yeah.
and that just it's one of those things that they're the talent level. They're all exceptional righties, and they're all most of them, at least in the top 6 in their order, up to Yadier Molina, are excellent against fellow righties. But over the course of the season, and when's that going to happen, and you fail 2/3 of the time or more in baseball, all of a sudden I'm looking at Freddy Peralta. Now, Peralta doesn't have anybody doing handstands over his walk issues, his lack of ground balls. But let's cut the kid some slack here. His second year in the bigs, and he was the guy that had, I don't know, a dozen strikeouts for his major league debut in Coors Field of all places. So again, weird stuff can happen, but with him and his talent level, I like this. Now, it was funny. Jake and I kind of bricked. We didn't realize that the Cardinals were in Mexico this weekend playing their series against Cincinnati. So they were in Monterrey, Mexico. And this is MLB does a couple series there or 2-game home stands there during the season, but I hadn't realized that's where they were. Now, just filling that out quickly, Monterrey is about 2 hours east of Brownville or west of Brownsville, Texas. So it's like right on the U.S. Mexico border. It's at elevation, but it's just 1,700 feet there, which would put it in contention for the second or third highest elevation in MLB, but it's behind Coors Field. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I just point out it's a long road trip to go from Mexico. Now you're back in Milwaukee, etc. I'm liking Freddy Peralta in this one, and I think he's somebody I'm willing to take a chance on, as opposed to where I was not thrilled with the Yu Darvish. I'm okay with this one, even though it's a tougher matchup, or it's against a tougher opponent, I should say.
Yeah, in GPPs on DK, I think Peralta is the second best option of the slate, even with the ownership, just because he can really put up a score that impacts the entire slate. He's got that kind of stuff. 11.1 Ks per 9 via steamer. So if it's working, it's a big time problem. Not a lot of people have that same sort of stuff. On FanDuel, there are like 2 or 3 guys that I think have comparable upsides, but he's also getting the benefit of the doubt on price. Only 7,800. He's the 8th most expensive pitcher. So I'm actually over the field on Peralta on FanDuel. I would be over the field on DraftKings. And if I take a look at the Yahoo pricing, he grades out as the best pitcher on Yahoo, regardless of salary. Oh, not regardless of salary, including salary. He is the 11th most expensive pitcher on Yahoo. Love him there as well. Ownership is coming with him, 32%. So that does give me a little bit of concern. People are obviously on this, but there's just a lot of upside in this potential play. It probably goes bad more than it goes good, but I can't imagine not having at least some of him. And I said Dakota Hudson is a complete cross-off.
Yeah, I want no part of Dakota Hudson here. There are 5 teams I'd probably take him against. The Brewers are in the 5 teams I'd say no way in hell I would go against him, just because they have extended their lineup with everybody healthy and just upgrades across the board. So if you're looking for potential stacks, and they were one of the ones I was looking at when I was writing the stacks article last night, they didn't make the cut. By the way, free article on the homepage, hitter and stacks, or spotlight hitters and stacks there on the awesome homepage. But for me, looking to let's just call it a couple of the specific guys. When you're looking at someone like Christian Yelich, Travis Shaw, Mike Moustakas, they all have the platoon advantage. Probably Grandal. I don't know when his last day off was, but he'll probably be in the lineup. All of a sudden, he's batting 7th. Wow, that's pretty good. I think they had him at batting 4th, at least one of the games in Dodger Stadium. But and that doesn't even get to Ryan Braun or Jesus Aguilar. And Aguilar's been sort of disappointing lately, but if you look at his last 500 at bats in righty-righty matchups, He has a 360 WOBA, which allows us to understand that his baseline for hitting is reasonable. So WOBA is not the ideal predictor, but it just kind of benchmarks where somebody is across a variety of stats that are compiled into that particular metric. But his 250 ISO, that tells you the story. If he connects, it could go a long, long way here. Yeah. So I all of a sudden, and you're like, well, he's like the fourth or fifth guy I'd want. Hey, you got yourself a stack with a guy with 30 home run power. That's your worst guy in. So there you go. Sorry to go to Hudson. My apologies.
Brewers are quite popular. They are the second chalkiest stack on FanDuel. They're chalky on Yahoo, chalky on DK. Makes perfect sense to me. There's so much power in this lineup. 5.1 run implied total, tied for the top. It's going to be really hard to ignore Brewers bats, even if they are pretty popular. There's a reason they are. So I will have exposure to the Brewers for sure. I'm actually a little bit over the field on the Cardinals as well. Most of the top of the order: Carpenter, Goldschmidt, Paul DeJong. But if Peralta is going to get that sort of ownership, it's not as if the Cardinals are bad. They have talented hitting up and down the lineup. 4.4 run implied total is pretty nice. No issue whatsoever going to Cardinal stacks if Peralta is going to be so owned.
Yeah, and with Peralta, I mean, just circling back on him, 52% fly ball rate over his last 400, well, I guess his career 400 major league hitters he's faced, nearly a 12% walk rate. When it goes sideways with him. He still has an 11% swinging strike rate, and these are combined versus lefties and righties, which is good. But the hard hit rate is at 41%, et cetera. So he's this young guy. He's got a lot of good talent and a lot of good stuff. Can he learn how to pitch? Now he's working with a new catcher in Grandal, so we'll see. But play both sides of this one. And this is the funny thing about baseball is you can actually play both sides and be completely right on both or completely wrong on both. So just playing both sides is literally no guarantee here. It's not a prisoner's dilemma situation.
Who's your favorite Brewers bat today?
I'm probably going to say Travis Shaw. Let's see what he's been bouncing around. I think he's first base and third base everywhere. For a moment, he was second base eligible. I believe it was on DK. And just a reminder how that works for the multi-position eligibility is if you play 15% of your at-bats at another position, you qualify for the other position to get your multi-position eligibility. If you play multiple positions, whatever your top two percentage-wise are the ones that you are designated for. So that's why you see, in NBA, you saw people bouncing around between point guard and shooting guard and small forward. You'll see the same thing with the, Kike Hernandez, Travis Shaw. There's a bunch of guys that get this designation. But for me, it's still probably going to be Travis Shaw, just for the discount to Christian Yelich. I mean, who doesn't want a guy who's going to be in the MVP conversation as the one they want? But the price tag, to be fair, going to Yelich is where I want to be. I mean, going to Shaw is where I want to be. Yelich is 5,400 on DraftKings, 48 on FanDuel, 10,700 on Fantasy Draft, and I'll just take that. Depending on your site, 20 to 40% discount here, Shaw.
I'm with you on Shaw. On the Cardinals side, I think Matt Carpenter is pretty clearly my favorite guy. Lefty, third baseman, leading off. Checks off all the boxes for me. So Carpenter would be the guy that I'm most interested in.
Concur.
All righty. Moving on. The Minnesota Jakes taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. 4.5 run implied total for the Twins. 4 run implied total for the Jays. Martin Perez going for Minnesota. Matt Shoemaker going for Toronto. Seems like a perfect time to like and subscribe to the channel, by the way. Just dropping that in there.
I give that a thumbs up.
There you go. I like it. I like it a lot. Perez getting no love, nor should he. Shoemaker getting no love, nor should he. Do you have any interest in either of the pitchers here?
Wait, who's pitching for Texas?
For Texas?
I'm sorry, for
Twins Blue Jays.
LA. Oh, I'm on the wrong page because sorry, I pulled up Shelby Miller and I'm like, wait, Martin Perez, and then I started thinking, well, he did pitch for Texas.
Yeah, that's fair. That one's fair.
Sorry, which game were we?
Twins and Blue Jays.
Oh, there we go. I skipped over that to the 8:00 games. All right, so yeah, Martin Perez, not the most stalwart of pitchers. The one thing I do want to point out, and I've done this for the last few spotlight hitters and Stack's article, Josh, is I put together how often these guys give up 5 or more runs. And it's a lot less often for a lot of these guys than we think. We did that with Wade Miley. Yeah, a couple other players. Martin Perez actually does fall into that category. Yeah, he's not great, but he's been kicking around the league for the better part of a decade. It's because he's a serviceable pitcher. Doesn't strike people out, walks a touch more than we want, but he puts a lot of ground balls into play. And I think one of the things as we go next level, because that's where we have to be here for Daily Fantasy Sports, and my powers flow.
Uh-oh. Down goes EMAC. Let's just yep, he's gone. He was trying to say that his power was flickering. He was right. It flickered. I should be getting the Slack message any second now. But what are you going to do? I'll keep going. You don't need Martin Perez. You don't need Matt Shoemaker. If you want any part, there's the message from EMAC. It was almost bad words. If you're doing anything in this game, you're probably looking to hitters. Blue Jays lineup on Yahoo is just crazy cheap. I really like them as a potential stack here against Perez. If we're looking across the other sites, I'm a little bit over the field on the Twins. They're getting 6% aggregate ownership right now. I'm at 9%. So Kepler, Cruz, Rosario, CJ Cron, I like all of those guys. Similar story on DraftKings, 6% aggregate ownership. Blue Jays a little chalky, 9% aggregate on FanDuel. I am also at 9%. So completely comfortable with that. Ooh, EMAX power is still off. So I'll be going solo for a bit. On DK, Blue Jays at 7% aggregate ownership. No issue there. They're just kind of hard to stack with the like Freddy Galvis isn't very interesting even at a cheap price tag. He's $4,200 on DraftKings. That's a terrible price. So like the best options on DK are probably Teoscar and Randall Grichuk, and that's 2 outfielders. So it's not the best overall stack on DraftKings. I do like the Jays on FanDuel, but I like being on the bats here. Both sides, and the pitching I will completely ignore. We're going to move on to the game that EMAC thought he was on. The Rangers. The Rangers. Oh, it's going to be one of those, isn't it? Rangers and Angels. 4.9 run implied total for the Rangers. 5.1 for the Angels. It's a 53% chance to win for the Angels. Shelby Miller going for Texas. Trevor Cahill going for the Angels. Shelby Miller can be completely ignored. He's getting no expected ownership, nor should he. Trevor Cahill getting no expected ownership, nor should he. Big implied total on this game. Could be even bigger than this. We did not have a line when I started. Let me check and see if that has come out yet. I put it in for 10, but that could easily be low considering this game is in Texas. We do have a line now on this game. The total is 10.5, so more than what I expected. Pitching is even worse. Hitting is where you want to be. That is not a terribly large shock to the public. If we look at it right now, both teams very chalky, double-digit aggregate exposure across all 3 sites for both teams. All of that makes perfect sense to me. On Yahoo, Cole Calhoun, Andrelton Simmons, and Justin Bour are the ones getting the biggest bump. They have 30+% ownership across the board. I have no issue with anything here, whether that's LA or Texas. On FanDuel, I prefer the Angel stack to the Ranger stack. I have more ownership there as well by quite a bit. That top piece of Calhoun, Simmons, Bour, Pujols just grades out really well. They're very cheap and easy to get to. And then on DK, I think they're relatively equal. I think Chu, Andrews, Mazzara, and Gallo grade out really, really well here. Andrews' price isn't the best, but it is a shortstop, so I don't mind it as much. On DK, Calhoun, Simmons, and Bohr, again, carrying all of the weight. They're the ones getting the ownership, too. So if you're looking to stack up these two chalky teams, you'll probably want to either add in guys that are not getting much love, so maybe Asdrubal Cabrera for Texas, who's only at 4%, or, going to maybe Brian Goodwin if he's in the lineup and hitting 5th for the Angels. Just getting someone in there that differentiates your stack a little bit. Or just make sure that you're not going to particularly chalky pitching. Doesn't matter if you do, you're going to need one spot to get a little different because these guys are getting a ton of ownership. Sorry, just cleaning myself up a little bit. If you're asking me what the best option is on the Ranger side, for me, it's Joey Gallo straight across the board, Yahoo, FanDuel, DK. Just monster power upside, hitting in the 4-hole, huge total. Doesn't really get much better than that. On the Angels side, I think Justin Bohr is the best option clear across the board, although you can make a really big case for Cole Calhoun, 2,500 on FanDuel in the leadoff spot. Ultimately, the top of both of these orders are kind of crazy. Calhoun's just underpriced to be hitting leadoff, at least on FanDuel. So I understand why he would be there. He wouldn't be my first one-off because of the ownership, but he grades out really, really well. So chalky Pujols in 2019. What a world. Pujols is not chalky. He's barely owned across all 3 sites. Yeah, you're going to want shares of the bats. If you're stacking up one of these teams, make sure that the other stack that you have with them is essentially unowned. You can go many different directions to get unique. I see no reason to get away from this game at all. Let's head to White Sox and Royals. 4.7 run implied total for the White Sox, 4.3 for the Royals. It's a 54% chance to win for the White Sox. Irvin Santana on the hill for Chicago. Heath Fillmyer going for Kansas City. Irvin Santana getting a little love as an SP2, just 5% ownership on DK. I don't have any interest in pitching in this game. Even though it is a great pitching matchup, both teams strike out an absolute ton. Neither one of these guys are particularly talented. Both have projected FIPS north of 5 via Steamer. Wouldn't shock me if one of them came out and had like a serviceable SP2 start, but it's really hard to prioritize either of these guys. As for bats, I have a little bit more love for the Royals side, oddly enough, than I do for the White Sox side. It's all sort of scattered, so I'm going to hit all of these guys sort of one by one across the sites. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, you probably didn't want that sniffle either. So for the White Sox, on Yahoo, I like the bottom of the order, particularly Daniel Palka if he's hitting 8th. Lots of power, $7 outfielder. Looks like a nice one-off. Abreu and Yonder Alonso are probably the 2 best bets at hitting 3rd and 4th. I'm a little under the field on the White Sox, but I understand the appeal of the stack. There's just better cheap stacks out there today. On DK, not getting much love, but I think that, the middle portion of this order, again, is interesting. On the Royals side, I would say Luke Duda is the best option on Yahoo from the Royals. If we get to FanDuel, I think it's pretty clearly Mondesi, $4,300 shortstop. And same for DK, $5,100 shortstop. Mondesi just looks like a really nice option here. I'm over the field on the Royals as a stack. They're not getting really any love outside of Mondesi on FanDuel. So I don't mind having a part of this because I think Irvin Santana is terrible. Not enough strikeouts. Ball should be going in play, and if the ball's going to be in play a lot, I like my chances. So don't be afraid to grab bats here. Nobody's really getting owned like crazy. Only guys in double digits on FanDuel and DK. Jose Abreu on FanDuel. Wellington Castillo on DK as a catcher option, which isn't shocking. Mondesi on FanDuel, and Whit Merrifield on DK. Yeah, this is an easy spot to get to, I think. Let's head to Los Angeles. The Dodgers taking on the Reds. 3.9 run implied total for the Dodgers, 3.1 for the Reds. It's a 60% chance to win for LA. Clayton Kershaw on the hill for the Dodgers. Luis Castillo going for Cincinnati. Kershaw at 16% ownership on Yahoo at $50. He is the fourth most expensive pitcher. He is the fourth of those four most expensive pitchers for me. I don't have a ton of interest there. He's 10-8 on FanDuel, where he is the second most expensive pitcher. I'll have a couple shares. He's not projecting for any ownership, and nor should he. And then on DK, he is 9,800, projected for 16% ownership. I have him behind Bauer, Syndergaard, Nola, Peralta. It's not that interesting for me. I don't need to get to a lot of Clayton Kershaw here, even though this is even though he's good. I don't think that he's the same Kershaw. This Reds lineup does not project to a lot of strikeouts. So I'm going to have a hard time getting to any sort of volume of Kershaw. Similarly, I think Luis Castillo is really good, but in this spot against the Dodgers, Dodgers lineup is scary good. So I'm not really getting to Castillo, nor is the public. I'm going to have a hard time getting to any pitching here. And I'm not really getting to any bats. I didn't get anybody on FanDuel more than 2% ownership. I think there are a couple bats that grade out well. Schebler, Puig, and Kemp on the Reds all grade out really well on FanDuel and Yahoo. Not so much on DK. On the Dodgers, it's pretty much just Jock Peterson for me. But this game is mostly a stay away. I was surprised that I wouldn't like Castillo a little bit more. But neither one of these teams' projected lineups have a lot of swing and miss in it. So I mostly just won't be here. If we see any changes throughout the day, if the line moves, or if we get some more interesting projected lineups, I could see something opening up. But I think the Dodgers are just a little overpriced for this spot. And Luis Castillo is a little too good to just target 3.87 FIP projected from Steamer. I would be using the Reds as one-offs. That's about the best that I can go for here. I mean, Puig is $2,300 on FanDuel, projected to hit third. Clearly a fantastic spot for him. He's getting a little bit of ownership. I like him as a one-off. I just don't like this game for stacks. Ooh, sorry for that sniffle, guys. We're getting there. 2 games to go. Mariners and Indians. 3.5 run implied total for the Mariners. 3.7 for the Indians. A 52% chance to win for Cleveland. Yusei Kikuchi going for Seattle. Trevor Bauer going for Cleveland. It should come as no surprise here that Trevor Bauer grades out as the best pitching option. He's the best starter by a mile on every site. He's getting that ownership too. I wouldn't struggle to jamming in Trevor Bauer in cash, but there is so much pitching talent here today that I don't see the need to go too crazy in a GPP perspective. I came in just slightly under the field on FanDuel on my first crunch. I would imagine that I'd come in a little bit less than that as we move forward, get a little bit more of like Luis Castillo, Clayton Kershaw, even more Syndergaard. There's a lot of guys that can be good here today. So I like Bauer in cash. I don't need him as much as he is owned in GPPs, but he's still, in my opinion, the highest ceiling pitcher of the day and not particularly close. Kikuchi, I think, looks like a really interesting SP2. 7,700 on DraftKings. I think he grades out nicely. If you want to get off of the Yu Darvish chalk on DK, I think that's very reasonable. On Yahoo, he is $39, which is the 7th most expensive pitcher. I am not as fond of that. It kind of makes him just blend into the pack. I would much rather still go to Freddy Peralta. So I don't mind getting to Kikuchi. I have a little bit at 7,700. I think that's worth it if he goes completely unowned. But he's hard to it's hard. He's hard to prioritize. Let's just say that. DK, I think that he looks the best as an SP2 to get off of some of the Yu Darvish ownership. As for bats, I got absolutely no Seattle. 0 across the board. They're not getting any ownership. It's a really tough sell for me. Mariners ballpark, relatively neutral for home runs. It's just, Trevor Bauer is fantastic. Big time stuff. If you want to fade Bauer, I get it, but I don't see the need to fade it and go to Seattle bats. Similarly, I don't see a ton of interest in Cleveland. Jose Ramirez is just underpriced across the board. 13, 31, and 39 from Yahoo, FanDuel, and DK, respectively. He's getting double-digit ownership. So he is a priority one-off to the public. I would probably just go a different direction and mostly ignore this game. I think, we have Jose Ramirez is not as good against lefties as he is against righties. Carlos Santana is not as good against lefties as he is against righties. They're not really set up here, so I can't really recommend anybody with any sort of volume. If you want to pick off some one-offs, like who do I think looks pretty good? Like, I don't mind Hanley on FanDuel for 2,500. I don't really mind him for 3,600 on DK, but I would rather just have some shares of Bauer in cash, and that's mostly it. It's not an appealing spot. Taking the camera off again so you can't see me wiping my nose. Oh, the podcast listeners, you guys probably love this. Whew. Oh, God, guys. We're getting there. On the Mariners side, if I were one-offing anybody, it would probably be Jay Bruce. So, otherwise, it's a tough sell. Nobody grades out all that well on a dollar-for-dollar basis on either site. Final game. The Padres hosting the Rockies. This did not have a total either when I did my first draft. Looks like the total is lower than I expected. I put it in for 8. It's actually 7. And a little bit of change at least. So 3.9 run implied total for the Padres, 3.2 for the Rockies. We've got Joey Lucchesi going for San Diego, Antonio Senzatella going for Colorado. Senzatella getting no love across all the sites, 5% or less. If you get that, it's fine. Lucchesi, 29% expected ownership on Yahoo, 7 on FanDuel, 14 on DK. I think Lucchesi grades out really nicely on FanDuel. He'll be a guy that I have exposure to right now. I have 11%, so I'll be around 10% for him. On DK, where he is $9,000, I think that price is fine. I'd rather have Freddy Peralta in tournaments. I'd feel a little bit more comfortable with Lucchesi in cash, but that's going to be a tough sell if I already have Bauer. Be more likely to just pay down quite a bit further and prioritize bats. So Lucchesi is there. It's clearly a good park. I'm not super worried about the Rockies offense. There's a little bit of swing and miss later on in the Rockies lineup. So whatever Lucchesi you get to, I think is fine. I think his best site is FanDuel. On Yahoo, he is actually let me amend that. Lucchesi is the 12th most expensive pitcher on FanDuel, or on Yahoo rather. He's at 29% ownership, which is kind of scary. If he has similar ownership to Freddy Peralta, you should have way more Freddy Peralta. Very different. Even though they're only separated by 0.6 of a point in my projections, the upside of Peralta's stuff is way, way, way higher. So I prefer Peralta in tournaments. I'd be fine with Joey Lucchesi as a Yahoo cash option. If we're looking at bats, I actually think that I'll get to some Colorado here, even at that terrible implied total. They're just really, really cheap. So Charlie Blackmon, Garrett Hampson, Arenado, and Story would be my primary 4 if I'm stacking this game. I think Garrett Hampson is a pretty popular one-off option, so I would try to avoid that setup. I think Story grades out really nicely as a $4,200 shortstop on DK. That's probably my favorite option on DraftKings in this game. On the Yahoo side, Hampson is $7. Mark Reynolds is $8. Both of those guys look good. Nolan Arenado at 17. I think those three guys make for an interesting three-man stack. If you want to have another big stack on Yahoo, that would be a direction that I would probably go. I am a little over the field on the Rockies right now, 10% aggregate ownership to the 7% that the public has. For the Padres, I have very little. If you get to Hosmer, if you get to Machado, I think that's all fine. Senzatella is like a passable pitcher, maybe a hair below average, but the park should help him out quite a bit. It's just not really that appealing of a game, so I can't advocate for too much here, but I understand why Colorado was mildly popular at the top. There's some actual talent there. Hampson, not necessarily talented, but being a second baseman that can hit in the 2-hole is valuable just because of a plate appearance perspective. Well, there we go, guys. 9 games up, 9 games down. I apologize for what I sound like. We lost EMAC halfway through to some power outages at his house. Rest of the day will look as follows. The deeper dive. You guys are going to really love this. No Adam for the deeper dive, traveling back from the FanDuel event in Miami. So I will be on the deeper dive with Laffy today, starting at 5. And then live before lock from 6 to 7, myself, Jake Hari, breaking down this slate again. So 2 straight hours of nasally Josh coming your way. Get ready. It's going to be super exciting. MLB Strategy is the promo code, 50% off your first month with us. Any monthly package you choose, including those with Fantasy Cruncher. Can't really beat it. If you want to try us out, you get 50% off. It's a pretty good deal, in my opinion. Pretty good deal. Shout out, as always, to Yahoo Sports. Yahoo is our presenting sponsor on the strategy show. They are our presenting sponsor for the deeper dive. Just doing a lot with Yahoo right now. On Friday, we will be back doing another Yahoo specific show, but I highly recommend that you start off any day of DFS. I think that the first money you put in should be going to Yahoo. It's going to be a softer site, easier to win. They run tournaments with no management fee. Cannot beat it. So that's where I'm at. I assume you guys don't want to hear me nasally say anything else, so I appreciate you bearing with me. Thanks for the kind words in the chat. I'm going to go take a little bit more medicine and lay down and rest up. I got to be back at 5 for Laffy. He's not going to let me. We're going to go for the title today. Today's the flu game. I'm going to put my flu game Jordans on. Won't matter to anybody on the show. And we're just going to crank out the best 2 shows ever. We're going to beat the Jazz tonight. That's what's going to happen. Thank you, guys. Good luck tonight. Adios.